Well, let's return to the Liberal Democrat conference now, and hundreds of thousands of wealthy individuals are to be targeted in a new crackdown on tax avoidance. Danny Alexander, who's the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, says 500,000 people with assets over £1 million will be targeted. There will also be separate measures to stop BBC executives and celebrities using tax avoidance schemes. And there will also be fines for football players and managers who avoid tax. Well, Nick Clegg will be hoping those tax plans boost party morale after a poll puts the party 4th place behind UKIP. His cause won't have been helped, though, by this.
When we're wrong, we hold our hands up, but when we're right, we hold our heads up too. You learn from your mistakes, and that's what we will do. I accept that won't be enough for everyone.
Well, the remixed version of his apology over tuition fees is currently number 35 in the iTunes chart. Well, joining me now from the party conference in Brighton is the Times chief political correspondent Sam Coates. Hi, Sam. And Lib Dem councillor Daisy Benson. Daisy, chief first, have you downloaded the track? Do you think it's a good thing or is it a bit embarrassing?
Initially I wasn't too sure, but now I think it's good. I think the message is going to be getting across to a wider audience.
Sam, do you think it is doing Nick Clegg any good?
Not really. I mean, I think that if you talk to Nick Clegg's advisors, there was quite a clear strategy behind the video. They know that come the next election, every time they make a promise, people will ask, won't you just break that promise like you did tuition fees? And so this is an attempt to say they've dealt with it. So I think the strategy is quite sensible. The problem was that the execution of the video was absolutely awful. And most people that I've spoken to, sort of outside of the Westminster bubble, think that it reinforces Clegg's vulnerabilities. It makes him look weak. It doesn't make him look strong. And that's why the parody that has sort of taken the charts by storm is quite effective, because it sort of quite cleverly taps into the sort of political weaknesses of the original announcement.
Daisy, we've had that apology. Various ministers and senior members of the Liberal Democrat Party at the conference saying, we want to be doing this. We hoped we would be able to do this. That's how you have to work in a coalition, and we can't get all the things that we want to do done. Is coalition bad for you?
We've certainly found it bad in terms of recent years and local elections, but I think, this issue of the tuition fees debacle has kept coming up on the doorstep, and I think people needed to hear it from Nick Clegg. They said that we're not angry with what you've done locally, but we are angry with Nick Clegg. And I think if a few people, if it's ameliorated that situation even a little, I think that will be a positive thing.
The talk today is about taxing very wealthy individuals. It's something the Liberal Democrats have talked about a lot in the past. Do you think there can be a difference? Do you think in the coalition that Danny Alexander and Nick Clegg will be able to make their voices heard?
Absolutely. As many of our ministers have already said, the Tories may think they've got majority government, but they haven't. They have to get our agreement to get things done in government. And I think Nick Clegg and our ministers have to be articulating our messages day in, day out about wanting greater fairness in the tax system at every step. And I think it is doable, yes.
Sam, I mentioned the tax system. It's something they fight for. How do you think it's going to go down in coalition? How do you think it will be received?
To be honest, I think today's announcements are pretty derisory. When you look at the bigger picture of what this coalition is doing, one of the biggest moves that they've done in the last year is to propose a change to the Controlled Foreign Corporation Act, which is going to encourage UK companies to flee to tax havens and make it easier for them to do so. So I think in the wider context, it's sort of a small tug in one direction when the great thruster policy is in another. But the other thing is, I don't think that there are many people in Monaco whistling through their teeth in nervousness at the idea that there are going to be 100 new people working on tax avoidance at HMRC. Are they full-time? Who are they? Where are they coming from? Do they know what they're doing? I mean, I think the questions just spill out. It's a crude piece of political positioning. I actually think that the Liberal Democrats aren't alone in this, but the party conference season throws up these sort of announcements that rather crumble in your fingers as soon as you look at them. And I think the public are fairly both wary and weary of the way that these sorts of announcements are sort of doled out to the media and end up looking like the less than the sum of their parts.
You'll know, Sam, that one of Clegg's closest advisors, former recently departed Director of Strategy, Richard Reeves, has said that the coalition spending cuts have been too deep. I know people like you, the journalists there, go round to these sorts of conferences looking for rumblings. Are you hearing much discontent?
No, I'm not. Even those people that you might expect to have a little bit of a sort of jab at the coalition spending cuts are being pretty loyal on it. And polling that I've done on this issue suggests that Liberal Democrat supporters also stick with the coalition's path. I think, broadly speaking, the Lib Dems know that if they start to unpick the sort of fiscal deal, the coalition spending cuts package, then this coalition will fall down in flames, and that would be even worse for the Liberal Democrats. So on that point, I think broadly they're being quite loyal, and Liberal Democrats, as a general rule, Liberal Democrat conference is normally a rally. They do gather around quite loyally around the party leader Nick Clegg and support what he's doing. So I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised if there was any great dissent on that or other matters here in Brighton this week.
Daisy, we've learnt that Vince Cable, Simon Hughes, probably others have communicated with Labour, communicated with Ed Miliband. Do you think in the future it would be more constructive working with Labour?
I think we have to keep the door open. I think it's clear that the multi-party politics is there for the future, and we'd be crazy not to be talking to other parties. And we've always been clear, if there are parties that are willing to deliver a progressive agenda, we're happy to work with them. So I'm relaxed about hearing about that.
If there was one thing that you would like to talk about at the conference, Daisy, the things that matter to the people you represent but is not on the agenda, what would it be?
Well, I'm actually delighted to see that housing is going to be centre stage this conference, and Tim Farron himself today was talking about pledging to build thousands of more council housing, and I can tell you as the local councillor, that is the issue that comes up time and again, and both Conservative and Labour governments have failed to deliver sufficient housing. So if I hear one thing, positive that's actually going to happen, if it's going to be a more affordable housing, I will leave the conference feeling pleased. OK, one final question to Sam then. Sam, do these conferences matter?
For the most part, they're too expensive for the average activist, and party leaderships pay little attention, hoping the best that they get out of them is a decent slot on the evening news. I can see within 10 years we'll move much more to an American system where there's a big event just before a general election. But the only thing sustaining them is that, broadly speaking, because so many lobbyists come along and buy stands and pay money to attend this conference, they're broadly profitable for the political parties. If that stopped happening, I think they would disappear altogether.
Sam Coates from The Times and Lib Dem councillor Daisy Benson, thank you both.